The snow has melted in Denmark, but apart from that, January began the way it's supposed to begin, for me, with the New Year's concert by the Vienna Philharmonic. Ever since I was a child, with the exception of the years that I lived in the US, I've watched this concert on the 1st of January. It's soothing and beautiful at the same time. The commentator seemed to feel the same because when An der schönen blauen Donau began, she said, "When you hear Strauss, you know the world still stands." Then the conductor, who, by the way, was 82 years old and still going strong, wanted to say a few words. He talked about how the music meant that the many musicians in the orchestra became one, which is even more important today. How COVID is not just a medical catastrophe, but a human catastrophe. It pulls people apart, but music makes people come together. He urged us to bring it into our daily lives, too. I really appreciated his message and, of course, completely agreed. I rediscovered knitting this autumn, and it has been like rediscovering an old yet younger part of myself. Because I knitted so much when I was in my 20s, before I had my first child. But then I lost interest or told myself I didn't have time. There's something about the old-fashioned slowness of it that appeals to me, and it's gratifying to see the work progress, especially as I have no external deadline. I get to decide how long it takes me. I think it's essential that we all have something in our lives where we alone get to decide that. I've wondered why I'm rediscovering it now, after 20 plus years. Maybe it's because it allows me to be productive in the dark winter months. But why not the previous winters then? Or maybe it's something with which to keep my hands busy and take me out of my mind. Which brings me to the business of COVID.
Well, I was going to sit on that bench there and film, but somehow I think not. There's been so much rain here these past few days that it's been flooded. Okay, so I know I'm a little dark here, but I need to stand in the shade of the tree, and the sun is actually out today, so that's quite lovely and unexpected. About this time 2 years ago, I began taking part in a course set up by one of the largest travel agencies in Denmark to become, of all things, a travel guide. I've always loved traveling, and I was beginning to suspect what I'd always suspected, that I probably was never going to make a whole lot of money writing. I was a copy editor at the time, and that also was not bringing in a whole lot of money, nor, for that matter, much joy. Being a travel guide might be a way of doing something that I liked while earning a little bit, and also sort of getting out there. Trying to write, or for that matter make YouTube videos, can sometimes be a very isolated endeavor. So I'd been to a number of sort of sit-down courses, and we were all rehearsing for a trip to a small town near Frankfurt in Germany, and rehearsing what to talk about in different sort of locations in this place, to pretend that the other people in the group, we were only 12, but that they were travelers. That was the last thing that we had before we'd get this certificate, this little trip to Germany. And then COVID hit the world. We thought it would just be a temporary thing, or we hoped that it would just be temporary. But it turns out, unsurprisingly now, that the rest of that year, very few people traveled at all. By sometime last year, 2021, the travel agency had lost 50% of its income and had to let a lot of their employees go, including all the travel guides. And of course, their first priority, the company's first priority, now that they're sort of up and running again, is to give the trips to the people they already have. So nothing has come of that. The way it looks now, nothing much is gonna come of that. Church bells, I don't know if you can hear them. I had one small trial trip to Nice, and that was great, also hard, because of course I'd never been a travel guide before, so I was a bit out of my comfort zone in some ways, but mainly because it was in French, and I felt I really needed to brush up on my French. All the guests were older than me, and I felt like a complete amateur, but it was actually quite nice. They were really nice people, and it gave me the incentive to continue. Alas, COVID put a stop to that.
I know I'm far from the only person who has lost a job or a job opportunity, so I'm not complaining. But it still takes some adjustment. New plans have to be made, which doesn't happen overnight. In my last video, I talked about accepting things you cannot control. It follows then that we try to work on and give energy to the things we can control, and perhaps even take it a bit more slowly, one day at a time. What we do have some measure of control over are the skills that we try to develop and improve on. Strangely, my renewed interest in knitting has coincided with a renewed interest in French, possibly ignited by that trip to Nice and my feelings of incompetence. But it's a challenge to learn French because we're not exactly surrounded by French in the media here in Denmark. I have to go out of my way to find YouTube clips and films and podcasts in French, and even then I feel a bit out of my depth.
Le problème, c'est que je manque toujours des mots, quoi, et, des phrases idiomatiques. Et ben, quand j'essaie de comprendre les Français, ils parlent très très vite, ils parlent trop vite, je cherche. Et quand j'essaie de comprendre les Français, souvent c'est totalement impossible parce qu'ils parlent très très vite. Le problème, c'est que je ne me suis pas habituée à parler français, alors je cherche des mots, je manque beaucoup de mots. Tu sais ce que veut dire? Tu sais ce que veut dire? Et les Français parlent très vite, trop vite, je veux dire. Et souvent, je les comprends pas. En effet, je suis perdue, c'est comme ça.
So now I'm trying to upgrade my French, while sometimes knitting at the same time. It's a slow process to become better, but that's okay. So I've planted out 2 small plants in this flower bed, kind of in defiance of the fact that it's January and I wouldn't normally plant anything out at this time of year, but I need something to remind me that it's actually going to be spring in a few months and that it's not just dreary winter. I'm being distracted by the cat, who has clearly found some birds. I wouldn't say I've always been the most patient person, but deciding to upgrade your skills means you have to be patient. You have to lean into the slowness of it, and I think that may be good for many of us these days. To some extent, the times demand it of us, so why not try to embrace it? It gives us time to just be. So consider this a bit of encouragement to find out what skills you think would enrich your life. All the best to you, and thanks for watching.